perhaps the most controversial part of this episode. So, Vegeta and Goku are talking, and he's like, "Blast it, I still say I could have won." And Goku's like, "You're still on that? I get it already." He says, "I get it already." And he goes like, "You mean Super Saiyan?" And he's like, "You mean Super Saiyan 4? And he's like, "Boo was really strong, so I trained a lot after fighting him." And he goes like, "I wasn't sure if it would work though." And he's like, "It's like a bargain sale of Super Saiyans." So that's really cool, basically. The old classic line, because when it was Trunks who transformed into a Super Saiyan for the first time, and Vegeta was like, "It's like a Super Saiyan bargain sale," and stuff like that. So yeah, and Goku goes like, "But you turned Super Saiyan 3 too." And he's like, "Shut up! That transformation was and he's like, "It's Ultra Vegeta 1." And Goku's like, "What the heck is that?" Oh man. We get Ultra Vegeta 1. And so this is where I'm gonna have to say, when we look at this scene here, and stuff like that, from a continuity standpoint. All right, so like most of you with this, when I heard that Dragon Ball, that I heard basically that this whole scene was, or Dragon Ball DAIMA was going to be about a year and a half or so after the Majin Buu saga, but like about 3 or 4 years before Battle of Gods. I'm like, okay, a lot of this is going to tie in Dragon Ball into Dragon Ball Super. And obviously there was a lot of things that were planted through here that tied very much into Dragon Ball Super. We saw where Bluma, aka Bulma, where she ended up going on to get her whole like, where she ended up getting, like, you know, wanting to look more younger and everything. We saw that here in Dragon Ball DAIMA. That really explains very nicely what happened there in Dragon Ball Super for her to be like that. And we saw more lore regarding like Zeno, when they were talking about the Raimas and everything. Just so much more that we learned that really ties nicely into where things are going in Super. You see even Vegeta and Bulma's relationship. But here, this scene doesn't really fall very well into Dragon Ball Super, because I mean, as mentioned before, with Vegeta in SS3, we saw how exhausted he was, and perhaps he didn't want to use that in Dragon Ball Super and stuff like that. And then you get to where Goku mentions, I think, was it right here? He was saying, as far, he calls it Super Saiyan 4, aka Super Saiyan 4 officially, and he says that he had been training really hard since his fight with Majin Buu. With that said in mind, if you go to Battle of Gods, he specifically states to Beerus that SS3 is his most powerful form. So you're probably wondering, well, why the heck didn't he bring SS4 out? So it does make things very confusing the way they choose to word things here. And I guess there was some confusion as well, saying he wasn't sure if he was able to pull it off or not. So we get confirmation that Goku, in the year and a half after he fought Kid Buu, he had been working on SS4, and he had been trying to get close to it, but he just couldn't quite reach it. And then it's Neva, through his power, from what we can see visually, Neva was able to unleash the SS4 and awaken it within Son Goku, allowing him to go SS4 for the first time. So got him really close to what he was looking for in terms of that power. Quite a different contrast from what we assume. We assume that, a lot of us assume that, okay, Neva brought out some sort of mutation with his magic that was going to allow Goku to only use this form in the demon realm, which would perfectly explain why in Battle of Gods he didn't use it. So we don't get that. Here, what I would have preferred to have seen and what I would have liked is maybe for their interaction, it would have been nice to see Goku basically be like, I think I'll call that Super Saiyan 4, but as it turns out, I'm only able to use it here in the demon realm because of Neva's powers. That's the only reason why I can do the form, so it's nothing I'll be able to do on my own, unfortunately. And Vegeta, he's talking about, oh, I thought you hid it away from me. He's like, well, at least you went Super Saiyan 3, and then Vegeta could have gone back to, speaking
Speaking of Super Saiyan 3, I'm never using that form again. It uses way too much energy. It's exhausting. I'll find a way to make my Super Saiyan 2 more stronger. Just you wait and see, Kakarot.
Which would perfectly then lead right into Battle of Gods. So now we know why Goku's only using SS3, and we see there spelled out for us right there on screen, Vegeta stating he doesn't want to use this form. It uses way too much energy. So that would have definitely perfectly been very well. That being said, that's not how they did it. And as a result, what I'm going to say here in terms of continuity is I just accept Dragon Ball DAIMA as its own continuity. Just the way they ended, there's just no way to really put it in there. Compared to Dragon Ball, there's no way, from what they state here, there's just no way to really tie it in with Dragon Ball Super, at least this moment. And honestly, I think the series is a lot more enjoyable for that. And I'm not one of these people who go in to be like talking about, oh, well, this is canon, so it's good. That's not canon, so it's good. I don't care. You know, I just want to watch Dragon Ball. And if the series is good, whether it was made by Toriyama or not, as long as it's enjoyable, that's basically what I tend to enjoy. And the way this kind of comes off to me, and this is what I'm going to say because it was never stated officially, Akira Yoku, who was Toriyama's right-hand man, the thing about it is, from what he said, he did state that the idea with Dragon Ball DAIMA is that it is a complete it was a sequel to the Majin Buu saga, and a lot of people are trying to, I guess, spin his interview and say, so therefore it doesn't go into Dragon Ball Super's continuity, but they never stated that it doesn't go into Dragon Ball Super's continuity, and unfortunately I wish they would have worded things better. So as far as I'm going to go in terms of the continuity here, until Akio Yoku or Toyotaro, the creators of Dragon Ball, until they come out and say elsewise, or they end up revealing notes that were left behind by Toriyama, if he left any notes behind, until anything is officially stated by this, I have no choice but to see Dragon Ball DAIMA as an alternative continuity to the end of Dragon Ball Z in terms of the Majin Buu arc, which is very interesting because if we do take Dragon Ball Super and throw it to the side, this really, and you could tell Toriyama really went back and made sure to link everything up with the Majin Buu saga very nicely within the continuity of Dragon Ball DAIMA. And it really, in DAIMA, does not contradict what goes on at the end of Dragon Ball Z / the end of the manga, because we're told there's 10 years of peace. Well, technically this being about a year after they defeat Kid Buu, the Earth was never in danger. Gomah only just turned them into kids. He was trying to prevent them from endangering his version of what he wanted to make the Demon Realm. So there's nothing in DAIMA that contradicts that. Yeah, they very much could have gone 10 years of peace after this. Bluma, aka Bulma, one of the most talked about ones in Dragon Ball Super, how at the end of Z / the end of the manga, she says she hadn't seen Son Goku in 5 years. Well, clearly that's not the case in Dragon Ball Super's continuity. However, when we look at it from Dragon Ball DAIMA's continuity, yeah, being that this is still like 9 years before the end of where Goku fights Oob, yeah, maybe it was 5 years before she saw Son Goku, and hey, there was no reason for Goku in that fight with Oob to go SS4, and it's very plausible that, yeah, sure, Goku and Vegeta would be training all that time. Of course Vegeta would probably reach SS3. Of course I'm thinking Goku would have mastered SS3 along with Vegeta, and of course SS4 is something that maybe they could have achieved. So when you look at those type of things, like, yeah, you could really watch the end of the Majin Buu saga and then watch Dragon Ball DAIMA and then watch the last 3 episodes of Dragon Ball Z or last couple episodes of Dragon Ball Kai, and or just read the last chapters of the manga, and everything perfectly smooths together. There are no continuity issues, and that's why I was saying Dragon Ball DAIMA feels like its own continuity with that. And that's why I say if you look at it from that standpoint, I think this is so much more enjoyable as an alternative continuity. Now, I doubt they would want Toriyama getting involved on something and stuff like that, but man, that's something that they did. I wish they would have done something a little bit more better with that in terms of making it blend in with Super, but It is what it is. Dragon Ball Daima. I just think they have their different continuities, and I'll say this, by the way. I'll get to the comment section. I am very much live. I'll be reading the comments shortly. I'll say this: when it comes to Dragon Ball Daima, and when it comes to continuity in Dragon Ball, this is the way I view it. You have the original manga that Akira Toriyama made. That is the source of where everything in Dragon Ball comes from. So there's that continuity. Then you have the Dragon Ball anime continuity and the Dragon Ball Z anime continuity, which definitely does faithfully link up very nicely with the original manga. It faithfully retells the manga's events, but it has its own filler and filler scenes, as they call it. And Toriyama did get involved with some of those productions in certain episodes. He even included Bardock, the father of Goku, and stuff like that into his manga, and then retconned it for his other version that we see later on in Minus, and then it's brought into Broly. So you have those different ones. So I feel like the anime Dragon Ball and the anime Z, they have their own continuity. Then you have Dragon Ball GT, which is its own continuity in a sequel to Dragon Ball Z. And then from there, we go into the movies, which have their own different continuities. And then you have Dragon Ball Super, which is like another alternative continuity to the Dragon Ball manga and Z stories. And they have their own series. And you have 3 different continuity versions of that, whether it be the movies of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. And then you also have the manga retellings and then the anime. And then when we get into Dragon Ball Super, there are 2 continuities with that in terms of the anime, in terms of the manga. And then you have Dragon Ball Daima here, which tells its own continuity, apparently, as it kind of just pretty much forgets Super within this scene with Goku and Vegeta. And so I go from there to say that, you know, if you just don't get so caught up into the whole continuity and you just kind of see that these are like different continuities and stories, and some are alternative stories, some will loosely follow, others won't, I think it'll be okay, honestly. It'll be so much more enjoyable. And this scene is the reason why I am telling a lot of my friends who are waiting on for the English dub to finish so they can binge watch it. I told them, I'm like, go into Dragon Ball Daima and seeing it as an alternative continuity and to compare to Dragon Ball Super, and you will enjoy it so much more. And I think that's a good approach to take for continuity for a lot of people. Yeah, just don't get too caught up in the continuity of Dragon Ball Super. I know us fans want to really feel it in terms of seeing, okay, this happened here, and so now it goes ahead and has consequences here. But unfortunately, from what I hear, they might not feel the same way in Japan, apparently. Shout out to Geeta 101, who always says there is no canon in Dragon Ball and stuff like that. And that's why he says it, because there's just too many different continuities. But if you enjoy Dragon Ball for what it is, there you go. So that's my take on it, and this is the reason why I'm not mad at this and everything. I just kind of took it as, okay, Dragon Ball Daima is its own alternate continuity until the creators themselves or those who were involved with Toriyama come out and state otherwise. I'll just take this as its own separate continuity.